Okay, welcome back. So we're still in the basic series, and now we're going to work with tone paper, but a dark tone, and working with a lighter pencil. So what I've got in front of you now is a demo I did some years ago, and it's a cityscape at 2 points, essentially a cityscape. But this is a quick illustration of the technique that we're going to be working with in this particular idea or lesson. And it's working on a dark piece of paper and working the light now additively or onto the picture plane. Before, we've been working mostly with wider picture planes or grounds, if you will, and then adding darker tone. And of course, we've worked on the tone paper in the green color. Now I want to work with a darker paper here, the black paper. I think that's interesting. So it gives you kind of a haunting, kind of an intense kind of contrasty value situation as well. So here's an example of that, and now let's move on to, since we're in the basics, we'll move on to a still life. And so I went ahead and I'll put that to the side, went ahead and put in a picture plane. Let me pull in a little closer at 9 inches by 12 inches. So my drawing will be 9 by 12, a little smaller, so we can get to it and see it. It won't take too terribly long. I don't want to make some of these videos a marathon, but sometimes I'm going to need a lot of time space to work on. So now the next step is the technique, is the materials and technique. I've got, for this particular lesson, I'm going to use wax pencil, or commonly known as color pencil, and these are Prismacolors. You can see them there, and they're both white. It's the PC 938 pencil. They're just essentially the whites, and I've already got them ready. I've already got them shaved down and exposed the lead pretty long here, and they're ready to go, good to go. Now, just pulling over here to the side a little bit, I'll pull over and I'll pull in a little bit so we can see. So let's experiment a little bit if you've never seen this technique before, right over and through here. So absolute dark now is the tone of the paper. So before it was absolute white, right? So this is absolute dark, and that's we'll still say that's 10 on our value scale. So as we move over here now, we can say that absolute light over here is going to take some time to build up. So you've got that tone of the paper, right? And we'll continue to build up a value system here that expresses what we want in terms of our full value range. So I'm getting closer there to absolute light. And of course, it's going to pick up a little bit of that texture of the paper. This particular paper is not Canson. It's probably a little bit cheaper, and it doesn't have quite the textural components to that. I just had so much of this that I was given some years ago that a lot of demos I've done with the black tone paper I just kept, and I've got some extra, and I thought, okay, let's do one on black paper here. So that's getting close now to absolute light, and where I'm layering it. And notice I got there from layering it. I went from light to dark. So what we can say is then, if that's absolute dark, then I'm just going to make a very quick little sketchy value scale. And so that's 1, right, 2, 3, 4, 5 is about there, 6, 7, 8, and on over. And as we get down now to 10 and get to absolute light, so you get the idea. I keep on going here, I guess. Let me just kind of smooth on into it, I suppose. Get close to it, but you get the idea. So we're moving over, and maybe I'll go for one slight change right through here to the dark. That's a little bit better now. So you get this movement, right, to build it up. So again, we're going to work from light pressure. So I'm going to put light pressure, meaning that, let me get that R in there, light pressure, okay? So we're going to build this drawing up in layers, number 1, I think, for a good aesthetics. Now you can break these rules later on, but in basics, in basics and intermediate especially, we want to keep that. So we're going to work in light pressure and layers, and now we're going to separate our drawing into 2 steps, okay? And then we're going to have a light side and a dark side, but we're going to render primarily, what's different from other drawings, we're going to render the light first. So light will be first. So keep that in mind. That's going to be a little bit different process. And quite frankly, it winds up having a little bit different kind of look to it, which I think is kind of haunting and interesting. I mean, what I mean by haunting, I mean that it has a nocturnal, a darker quality, because quite frankly, we're starting from an absolute, you could think of this as a dark room or a dark void instead of a white light void. So the way you started drawing in terms of its background tone can say a lot, I think, about the, what am I trying to say, the overall feeling of what you're trying to express as well. I think that'll be interesting. Okay, so I'm going to pop up the image here on screen. And so we've got a little bit more complex arrangement, and so a couple things to look at. We're talking about composition, and by the way, I'll be doing some lessons, excuse me, more on composing. But just about everything we've done, what we do in these lessons and at the drawing database has composition into it. But we'll slow it down and make a true lesson issue out of it as well. I think that's important too. So I'm going to be working again with the Prismacolor. These are wax pencils, right? So they're a little bit different than the chalk. They're not as dry, they're not as smudgy, and then probably just the kneaded eraser and maybe a white Staedtler and some hard edges too as well. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to lay in my composition here, looking for that back wall, and it's about halfway, maybe slightly higher. I'm going to lay that in nice and light, nice and loose. So we can have that come in, right? So we have that there. And then we've got several objects. Now, one thing I see I don't like, take a look at the composition. The rectangular box over here is at such an extreme eye level to us. And it's slightly 3-point, which I'm going to change. So it's angled in a little bit. So I'll do that over here. So the box actually over here is angled in a little bit. And that's slightly saying it's 3-point perspective, which I'm going to change right now to 2-point since the other forms are not so much, because we're getting a little parallax from the camera. So instead of this box angling, I'm talking about the left angle. I'm going to straighten it up here. Okay, so I'm going to straighten it back up. And then the other thing is, take a look at the very top of the box. You see the dark plane and you see the light plane. They don't change angle because we are at such an extreme at eye level. That's not a good thing for dimensionality. So we're going to change that. So if I brought the corner of the box down, like so, that's what I'm looking at. Now this plane changes a little bit here, slightly 2-point, and it goes back nice and deep there. So that's a problem. So what I'm going to do is take this edge here, the top edge, and I'm going to angle it down further. If I angled it up, that means we'd be above it, and that's not really, that's a harder correction. So I'm going to make this change here, okay, this box, and then I'm going to bring it down straight. So I'm going to make that change too. So we've got 2 changes to that box to make, and then I'm going to slightly alter this angle just a little bit to bring it down, like so. And again, if I start to block it in a little bit, you see what I'm doing now. And it gives us, look at the difference between where it was before, just a little bit better view of the 3-dimensionality. So that's drawing not only what you see and correcting what you know to be a little bit awkward from when we take an image, etc. as well. I think that can be challenging. And that's why it's important to change too. So we've got 2 changes to that box to make. And then just back the box down. Plane, and you see the light plane. They don't change angle because we are at such an extreme at eye level. That's not a good thing for dimensionality. So we're going to change that. So if I brought the corner of the box down, like so, that's what I'm looking at. Now this plane changes a little bit here, slightly 2-point, and it goes back nice and deep there. So that's a problem. So what I'm going to do is take this edge here, the top edge, and I'm going to angle it down further. If I angled it up, that means we'd be above it, and that's not really, that's a harder correction. So I'm going to make this change here, okay, this box, and then I'm going to bring it down straight. So I'm going to make that change too. So we've got 2 changes to that box to make, and then I'm going to slightly alter this angle just a little bit to bring it down, like so. And again, if I start to block it in a little bit, you see what I'm doing now. And it gives us, look at the difference between where it was before, just a little bit better view of the 3-dimensionality. So that's drawing not only what you see and correcting what you know to be a little bit awkward from when we take an image, etc. as well. I think that can be challenging. And that's why it's important to get in front of your own still life objects as much as you can. Use the photographic references that I have at the database, and use these lessons as helper guides, and then break off and do your own stuff when you need to, and then come back to it. But we can correct that. All right, so getting back now to our lay-in. So let's lay in. I'm gonna lay in the cone first. The cone is kind of in the middle, so I'm just kind of lightly feel that through a little bit. So that cone is also overlapped a little bit from the pyramid, and I'll draw through that later. So I'm gonna lay in the cone here, and I feel its top about right there. I'm gonna cut off maybe some of this at the top too. So I'm gonna put the cone and everything a little higher, and so we'll gingerly now lay in the angle of the cone here, and then come down in through here. So the cone will be there, and it's got a cast shadow moving a little bit this way. So where's the light source? Well, the light source is from the right. And it's about medium height, so it's about here looking in and over coming in. So you can see it's actually the direction of that cast shadow out and over somewhere out here. Keep that in mind. So we've got the cone that we've laid in, and I'll start to block in that. That cube in the background, that's a perfect cube. Here, so we're looking at that negative space there, so laying in the front plane here, and laying that downward, coming down to the middle plane, over through here, and through here, and I want to make sure I don't crop out that rectangular box in through there. Okay, so we see just a little top over here of our boxy form. Now I'm going to draw this little solid through almost in through here, because it'll get cut off about right there. So about there, and then I'll come over so I can draw through a little bit. And so that back table would be just a little bit higher. So probably about right about there. Feels pretty good. Once I get a good line, I'll make it a little bit stronger. Now let's put that rectangular box. I'm going to make it pretty high up here and over. I know it's going to touch and overlap our cube about right here. So I'll bring it up and a little bit higher there. I'm going to get close to that edge. And now I'm going to bring it over. And now I'm going to relate this angle that I talked about over and through here. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit further. That's an adjustment. I made that adjustment. You have artistic license. I'm not going to take extreme adjustments, but I need a little bit of adjustment to make that work a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to bring, so that's the side here. So I need to bring, this is actually about right here. Sorry, so it's about right there. And over, then we can come just slightly down, not by a whole lot, and through here, and then about right there to here for the side of the box. Let me tighten that up a little bit so you can see this a little bit better coming in through here. So I made an adjustment there, here, especially through here. Not so much there, but especially through here. And I'm actually going to make that angle just not quite even that strong, just a little bit more than it is in the photograph, but barely. And I think I'm actually going to crop that off. I think it'll be nice to crop that, so I'm going to make another adjustment and crop that. This is almost straight, but not quite since it goes back. And just slightly angle it, so I changed the angle just a little bit. So, a couple things I did. I cropped it off in my photograph. I think this is good to see how artists make adjustments to what they want. Let me come over here and get this box tightened up. So once I get an edge, and I've got a machine edge that I'm working with, so a man-made edge, I'll sketch it in, and then I'll tighten it up really quickly with a hard edge, but keep it, still sketchy. We don't have to draw so tight and so rigid, even when we're using an edge. So about right there for that cube. Through there, and I'll pull this angle back a little bit further and through there, and then also now through to about right, back there, there's the 45, and then over, back on it through. So we're feeling pretty good there. That's a little bit too angled right in through there. So I'll make little mistakes and I'll adjust as you need to. So, wax pencil is a little bit tougher to erase. That's one thing that's a little bit of a negative, so I have to be careful, but it does come off a little bit. I don't mind showing a few mistakes. It gives the drawing a little bit of integrity. I guess a human touch quality to it, so it's a drawing, it's not a photograph. I'll do maybe something in the future. Don't hold me to it yet. I get some emails like, hey, did you gonna do that? I'm like, well, I totally forgot I was gonna do that. But I think that's good. What I'm saying is we might do something that's real photographically rendering. We do rendering kinds of projects that might help. But, let drawings be drawings. So I made this higher than the cone right here, the rectangular box here, and I changed the angle a little bit, and I also cropped it just a touch. So you can alter that which you draw from according to your needs and to, I think I made hopefully the final product better. Okay? All right, so a couple of interesting things. I'm playing around with this cast shadow here now, coming from this pyramid later on, but it comes up this box right in through here. This is a form shadow here, and then cast shadow from the pyramid later on, which will be about right, a little bit higher, and then kind of comes in and over with a nice subtlety to that. So we can kind of play around already with the angle of the cast shadow, which is almost really horizontal, coming through here, right? So we get that coming on through. And let's start to play now with the pyramid. So one thing I see how to place it, I'm kind of looking at this diagonal in terms of composition, where this point is of a cube, and see those. I'm looking at this diagonal. diagonal, so about this angle where the end of the pyramid would be, over to about right here, how that plays off one another. That might be a little bit wider. It's kind of right in there to get that first angle. So I'll take a lighter stab at it, and then when I feel comfortable about it, I'll make it a little bit stronger. So that feels pretty good, maybe a little bit longer on this side. So I'll put a little dot there to tell myself I'm getting confident how I want it. And then the backside shadow plane break of the pyramid is about right in through here. That's how I'm reading it. So this will be overlapped later on, and of course it'll be erased out because it'll be darker. And so now we have an opportunity to come over here, and let's see how we're doing. Right in through here, and then we'll bring the angle down to the pyramid. It's almost cropped out, not quite. We'll leave that on. It feels pretty good. Right in through there, and right in through there, and then we'll say, okay. So this bottom part of this pyramid is a little blunt. It's kind of shaved off. I'll make it come to a point right now, and if I want to take it back to that little rectangular blunt ending, I will. So we have a little artistic license there. All right, so I've got my pyramid laid in, and I'll just match up, bring this cast shadow over, and you notice how there's part of that pyramid that's slightly off the table, which is kind of cool. That means it's probably a little bit crooked. And I'll just keep that for now. I'll change it if I want later. So I get that. So I'll get this cast shadow a little stronger. And through here, notice I'm drawing really lightly, fairly loosely. I could be looser, but pretty loose in the quality of the drawing. And now we have the cylinder and the ball still left to draw. So I'm going to take on the sphere. Now in here it's a little bit taller than the pyramid, using a little horizontal alignment right through there. There's a lesson on that. And so a little bit higher that I've got, and I think it's in the basic section, and also the figure section, actually, that's right. And so the sphere probably sits about the same length, or horizontal length of where the cylinder is. So it seems like a good place. And so I'm just thinking about that as I draw through. So I'll draw through a little bit, get in that habit of feeling through objects and feeling through forms, so you can feel their backside as well. Because if I show you where this pyramid is, about right here, and over and through, that means they're almost touching, but not quite. Keep that in mind. The subtleties of picking up full volume. Being able to imagine forms as you draw them, as you see them, the front, the sides, but also what's going on the back, that which you can't see, right? All right, so we have the sphere laid in, and I'm going to start in on the cylinder. The cylinder starts a little bit, slightly to the left of that point, and I'll just draw the vertical up. So it's classic one or two point cylinder. Now here's another issue. So again, the cylinder lays pretty stinking flat to our eye level. Now, because it's right at eye level and because it's about almost really the same height as here, and here I'm telling my audience that this box is slightly above us because of the angle. When I change the angle here, okay, I lowered our eye level just a little bit to get this angle. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So let's come back over and talk about this idea really quickly from here, right here. And so the difference is the cylinder is pretty straight across. I don't like that. That doesn't tell me a story about its roundness. So what I'm going to do, just like we did up here, I'm going to take it and I'm going to round it out just a little bit. Just enough of an angle to say our eye was here. We're going to drop our eye down about, I don't know, just a little bit, so we're looking slightly up at these objects. Theoretically, that should change all of this, but it's so slight that it doesn't matter, okay? As long as it's a very slight change. So if I can tighten this up a little bit, to show you what I did is I just made that more of a curve, whereas before, if you take a look at that, you see it pretty straight across. So it was like, it was like that. Which I don't want. I want that to be a little bit more curved. All right, so what we can do is just draw a rectangular shape, just to lay it in, and it's about the same height as this cone. I'm gonna make it a little bit taller than the cone because I can, and a little bit shorter than this box because I can. I can do both this. So we'll lay that in. It bisects the sphere about right into there as I lay it in. Now I can come across and say it looks like a flat shape. Well, that's not good. What I need now is curvature. So I'm gonna come across here and give this a little curve and drop our eye line just a little bit, or raise it higher. Either way, you can think of it. Otherwise, we are now looking up to it just a little bit. That's enough. Any more than that, and then we get into problems of perspective. So I'm going to tighten this up a little bit right through there. And now I'm going to lay in form shadows. So I did the cast shadow in here. So the cone is interesting because it's got two things going on. on, this makes this a more complex image in that we've got form shadow here across, coming across the object about halfway, kind of bisects it. So we're turning here, right? The light source is coming in through here, but now we've got a cast shadow from the pyramid onto the cone here. So that means means the light's pretty low. And so what's happening, this is a straight line angle, but now of a cast shadow, but it's on a curved surface, so it's going to go concave. Is it concave or convex? I think it's convex as it turns over through here. If I get that wrong, sorry, somebody correct me. It turns over. This is supposed to be a straight line cast shadow, but it's on a curved surface, so it's straight, and you can see where the bottom angle of it goes down a little bit like so. So you see how we have two different shadows, a form shadow, which what kind of edge does it have? It's going to be a soft edge later on, and a cast shadow is going to be a little bit harder. It's harder to tell the difference between, but I'm going to make this one a little softer, and I'm going to make that one a little sharper just to show the difference between the two. I think that's going to be pretty important. This angle of this pyramid, I'm going to make a little bit stronger, just slightly, about right here, just a little bit more of an angle, whatever degree that is, don't know. So I've made that change there, and so let's take a look now at our composition, and I think we're looking pretty good. We've got two form shadows to take care of, and then we finish our lay-in and we can go to our block in. So lay-in takes care of composition, takes care of scale, proportion, any changes that you make, cropping, altering the viewpoint, the perspective slightly is important. So laying in now the form shadow over here, where the light ends and the shadow begins over here, right? And then we have our sphere, and I'm going to take some of this out so we can see that a little bit better. I don't mind some of these construction lines showing through my drawings. They're just demos, so it's not a big deal. If you don't like it, feel free to take them out. So form shadow here, the ball is in more shadow than it is light. Light source coming over here, hitting over here, and then we have this nice curvature of what will be where the light terminates and the shadow begins right in through there. And then I'll lay in also the cast shadow here in the back, being made from the forms onto the wall. So it's a grayer wall, and now it's a little bit stronger, lower light. So we have this cast shadow here, and then it gets pushed off in a nice diagonal right over through there. That's going to be a nice area to work with. That helps break up some of that. And then I think what's important down here, see how this cast shadow line is pretty straight horizontal. Compositionally, that's a little rough. There's also, see where it gets a little bit lighter in value right in through here on the image, and then a little bit darker. It gives me a slight angle. I'm going to play off that angle a little bit more than it is, just to give movement. So I'm going to play this compositional movement game where I'm going to build up this angle here later, so it can play off this, right, to this movement here. So, and then our eye sees this movement, this cast shadow, comes out, helps me get over here, this angle, this, and over, and then we can come back through the curve and over to here, down, and then read out of the image. So diagonal movement and flow through the composition up and out is pretty important too, as well. Okay, so there's the lay-in. Let's start now with the block in, and let's separate this drawing in terms of its values from very simple 1-2 steps, light and dark. So when I start blocking in light, I block it in from about this, I'm going to put a B over here, and that means that's where I block in, about 3s or 4s maybe on the value scale. Remember, we're drawing with the light, not the dark. So as we get darker and as we get to the core shadow, that core shadow is going to be over here at 10. So the I'm going to be blocking in with what, probably 8s, 9, 8, maybe 7s. So 8s and 7s over and through here. Okay, let's get to our block in. So I want to block in now the light on the still life. So 1-2 steps, separating the light side from the shadow side only. And we'll just begin here by taking each plane here. So I'm going to start with this plane and just lightly start to lay in a lighter value. Okay, so now we're working. We're blocking in, we're mopping in or blocking in, but we are taking it now from the light to the shadow, a little bit different process than before, but not dramatically so. I think that's important to notice too as well. This cast shadow line needs to be about right there. All right, so here, and then we'll start to hit this plane of our cube and through here a little bit at the top. And I'm going to go a little bit quicker for this one, a little faster sketch. So I got a question the other day about, not really a question, but a statement about the length of the videos. They can be long at times, and sometimes it's a little difficult. I would say watch them in sections. I would say also that they need to be as long as they need to be so you can see the process. I think that's important. Remember, you can always fast forward. So fast forward as much as you can. A lot of times it's just working on things you might have seen. So, but by all means do that. But by and large, what separates, I think, good instruction is seeing the entire process. So I really appreciated when I was a student seeing my professors show demos, and sometimes, since my classes were 8 hours long, we might have a 3-4 hour demo, and it was really illuminating. It just depends on your intensity, but you always have the option of pausing and moving on. I had a student the other day in my class here at the university. We're studying 2 and 3 point perspective, and I'm doing demonstrations in front of the class with everybody as they draw along concept drawings, kind of like the videos, a lot like it actually. And I was going pretty fast, and at the end of the class, I had a student say, "You know, Mark, it's like watching a YouTube video, but I can't pause you." And so I got a good chuckle out of that. And here you can pause the video, so please do when you can. But I'll keep them as long as they need to be. I don't want to make them any longer than that, but they'll need to be long, sometimes even longer. But feel free to certainly pause it. You're in control of that. So, all right. So continuing to lay in form here, a lighter form, separating light side from dark side. I'm going to already go ahead and lay in a little value here, and you can already see we start to get a rudimentary kind of a dark darker roomed lit value structure through here. So I'll like this in, and I've kept this angle down below here to give it a little diagonal movement. I think that will help, and then we'll come up here and catch this pyramid over here. So yeah, I got a big chuckle out of that. My wife and I did both about he couldn't pause me in class. I thought that was funny. But here you can. That's why I think some instruction is better, especially in perspective. I think it's better done through 4K video now that we have 4K. It's really high def, and you can focus in and focus out, or you can edit in and out both and see clearly, and the student can pause and draw over. You know, it's like you have a mentor there at all times, and then after you do a drawing at the university, you can bring it back for critique and review, which is good. And then You don't always get that online, unfortunately, but it can't be everywhere. So now blocking in the light here. And keeping it really simple. It's I'm right over here in terms of value scale, nothing too dramatic. You can see this just start to illuminate and start to turn on a little bit. Okay, so it's about understanding 6 properties of light, value, edges, as well as doing it kind of in reverse, right? It is kind of in reverse when we do it this way. So blocking in the sphere here. Again, getting the light's shape. And continuing to work on the boundary, edges, as per needed and warranted. Right into here. There we go. All right, it's looking pretty good for start for block in. Okay. All right, so we've got a nice separation. I might come back here and get just a little subtlety right off the bat, right in through here. So I'm looking at this value over here, and they're pretty similar between here. Later on, they'll be a little bit lighter in here. So we'll move up and around, keeping it pretty light, keeping it looser this time, a little bit looser as we go through the process here. Okay, so that feels pretty good about where we're at in the drawing. So I'm going to continue on now. I'm going to start working with the cone and the box here, and go a little further now in my planes. I'm starting to develop with the box 1, 2, 3 step shading. So I'm going to kind of catch my edges a little bit here, nice and clean, catch them through, refine them a little bit, then start to add a little bit more of the lighter value. I think one thing you want to be careful of in this particular type of drawing here is you don't want to get too light too quick. You know, most of everything is going to be in this area with the highest highlights about right in through there. So just be careful of that. Gradually ease into that. Try to see the subtleties within the forms. So it's lightest in this corner area, gets a little bit lighter than anything else, right in through here. So we can continue on. I'm just going to keep working it through here. And it gets a little bit softer and shadowy right in through here on the edge, right down in through here, and we'll cast shadow from that cone. merging, but it gets pretty modulated and soft. off. So I'm going to catch this edge a little bit here, running through there, and come back over. Catch this right there. It's looking pretty good, and we'll continue on through here and downward, and then it gets a little bit lighter in this form shadow right into there. And then it gets a little bit more of a kind of a, it's not, I wouldn't say highlight, but a little bit lighter in the lip towards that bottom. It's catching a little bit of light and through there. We'll come down a little bit and butt that out. It's getting reflected back up just a little bit right in through there. And it's a little bit lighter up into here. So remember, this image that we're working from is from the little tabletop that I have set up. It's got a piece of white foam core board, and so it's very white. But if you take a look at the actual image, what we're looking at is very much many different forms of cooler grays in this particular image. So we get one light source coming from the right, about medium height. So it's looking pretty good right in through there. I think that's plenty bright enough. It comes off in the camera even brighter than sometimes what I see in my image when I'm looking down on it a little bit. And so the last video I did, the tone paper, when I showed you my desk and how I work, so you can see kind of my set. I think I'll do that more often, so you can see the drawing in its original size, so you can get a better sense of that. So I'm going to come across this little form on the top plane, and it's close to where I want it to be right in through here. It's a little darker, okay? 1, 2, 3-step shading. Light source here, right? Hitting hottest and brightest, medium, and then darkest on the opposite. Since it's lower, this is going to be a little bit brighter. All right, so we're going to come through here. I'm going to catch this edge right in through here. There we go. That feels pretty good right in through there. So I'm going to point this out. Tap this point a little bit in here, bring this corner together in resolution just a little bit, and soften this little edge out just a little bit. And I think we're there, maybe just a little bit more in through here, and blend this in just a little bit. That's pretty good. This secondary plane I'm going to leave for a moment, and I'll tell you why. I want to get a feel for this value on the rectangular box first, and then I'll get the subtleties of the cube next. So we're pretty, it seems like a flat value on this rectangular box, and it's a little bit not quite as hot or bright or contrasty as the lightest light on this one. And I'm going to put a little bit more light on the lip here, make it glow a little bit, bring that out just a little bit further. So we've got that. So I want to keep this tone down just a touch overall, more so than the brightest brights on that one. So that's my my goal here, is to do that. Come across here and modulate it inside here a little bit. So notice I take pains to catch my edges. Remember, I adjusted that edge just a little bit so we could see it more from slightly lower eye level than what the image is, because it's straight across, which I did not care for. So we'll put that little lip on there, make it a little bit brighter, and then I'll carry that off there a little bit. So now I'm going to sand my tip a little bit, just rub that off screen a little bit to give it a little bit more back to a point a little bit. Okay, coming back. Right. Also, I'll try to do a better job of editing this time. Sometimes I missed the first cut edit on the last tone video. Sorry about that. You had to go see me find my chalk pencils. I had forgot to, where I put them. Didn't lay them out, so I'm glad I didn't say something stupid on camera. That would have been embarrassing. I have a tendency to say stupid things at times. But I thought I'd leave the edit in once I caught it. Oh well, nobody's perfect. I'm certainly not. So, all right, so I'm going to come down here and catch this little shadow now in through here by toning around it in light a little bit, and then glaze over that. See, I can kind of just glaze over that a little bit, and that gives me, that kind of softens it up a little bit, but also fades out its darker value a little bit. Tone that a little bit lighter, and I'll catch this over here so it's soft. Blend through that a little bit. Catch this light over here a little bit more. And we're pretty close, I think, to where I want it in through there. Catch this edge right in through here. Okay, now I can come back on this cube over and through the left side. of the cubic box. I'll catch this edge just a little bit through here. And then I'll come back and say, we're close, and through here I might glaze over it just a little bit to soften it up, especially right in through here, and then fade it off a little bit there. And we're pretty close to where I want it to be. I like having it there. Take that edge off. Okay, it's working pretty well. I'm going to lighten this up just a step more, not by much. I want this plane over here to modulate a little bit with some reflective movement, but not be as light as my lighter lights over and through here. And so I'll just lighten this up just a little bit more, just perceptually minor, right in through there. Okay, that's working pretty well. And then I'll come down and catch this this light, direct light coming in through here a little bit, and then on the table coming over, coming through right here. So it's a little bit faded from the plane of the box here, and then right in through this rectangular box is a little bit hotter, brighter. When I say hotter, sometimes I mean brighter. And right in through here, it's a little bit hotter because the light source is medium height coming from this direction, so it's hottest in here and a little bit perceptually less so as it comes down a little bit. Just try to be aware of that, be careful of that. So, all right, so taking this little cast shadow, and it's softer and modulated, muted there. Now I'll come across here, we'll work this rectangular plane. I'll take this line out. If you draw a line enough with these colored pencils, you can erase them. If you get, excuse me, if you start getting pretty intense, you may have to take an electric eraser off to take off some of the work in through there. All right, so when looking at the relationship over here, this is pretty dark over here. It's pretty rich and dark. The only way I can get that true darkness is to leave the paper. So I might leave it pretty dark over here. I might just modulate a little bit. But here this plane is a little bit lighter from the rectangle, so I've got to go a touch or two lighter. not by a whole lot. So its value scale relationship is way over in this range, really close to the dark. So I'm going to lay in a little bit here. I think I'll turn it to the side now so I can see and get to it better. And you can see, I'll move the image obviously, as I've been doing. And so let's modulate it here a little bit. Just a very, very light touch. And sometimes I like to work a little diagonally, just to give a planar approach, moving across the form in a diagonal manner, but it's very, 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 very light. And if I get a little too light, I take my kneaded eraser and I can dab it down a little bit and keep it darker than I need it. But I'm just relating this value, this whole area together. It's very, excuse me, very subtly different. Very much so. So it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more to the center. We get a little bit more reflected light, but not a whole lot. So it's looking pretty good in camera. And coming off, I'll get a little bit darker down into here. So again, I like to turn my images, if you're just seeing this for the first time, to the side or up and down, left or right, 360. You're in control of it all to get what you need, the best stroking methodology for your drawing. And this, again, this paper is not Canson. It's a little bit, it's got a slight tooth to it. It's good for concept drawing really quickly. It's not very expensive drawing. I forget exactly where and why I had it. I think somebody supplied it with me. It's kind of like just black construction paper, but I think it's a little bit better grade than that, but not by a whole lot. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And through here, then I'm going to come across and bring up that line a little bit. And through here. Notice I'm working in different directions. That helps to blend it if you want a little bit more blended look. We're keeping it, it's a fairly loose sketch. It's got some tightness to it. I've seen tighter, or excuse me, loose. I've done looser drawing, but it's somewhere in between that, which is fine. So a little bit lighter through here, not by much. Okay, so I'm going to flip back. Here we go. And back in camera there. Okay, so that's working, I think, pretty well. So this relationship, I think, works pretty well in terms of looking at the image. Now, we cropped off here compositionally, and so I'm going to work a little bit now this bottom shadow. And I'm going to take this harsher white line off because it doesn't really exist in the drawing, or the image, excuse me, and take that off a little bit. Now these are perceptually really close values, aren't they? They're very, very close. And so to separate that out, there's a little bit lighter value, and about right in through here, then it gets a little darker, so I'm going to lighten that lighter part right in through here. This is really, really subtle. These little steps, little thousands of little tiny value steps in through here. So right in through here, and then I'll come down a little bit, and it gets a little bit lighter where the edge ends, right in through here, just a little bit. A little reflected light coming in through here perceptually to give me that line. And so I'm going to give a little bit of an edge, not to the box, but I'm going to butt my edge so I can bring up that lighter value, just that reflected light, out just a little bit more with a crisper edge. That's what it's reading it. So it's kind of on the outside of that, and it works decently well. And then it's going to fade down into that cast shadow. And the cast shadow gets further away from the pyramid. So notice how here it's a little stronger edged. And as it gradually gets further and further away, this is a good example of what happens when more light and reflected light gets to a cast shadow edge. It gets softer, softer and softer, and more modulated. So that's important to see. Okay. That's about as light as I want to go there. There we go. So we can take that down now. Go a little darker by laying off through here. Come through. So now we've got our cast shadow over here, and it starts to get lighter on this side as more light gets through. So we'll start to lighten this up. I'm going to draw over this, and it just starts to soften it up too as well. You can see that it gives it a nice softness. So I've seen a lot of, when I worked in storyboarding a little bit, a lot of concept artists use tone paper, did really quick studies with color, etc., in pastel or color pencil to get cool light ranges, or concept drawings for animated movies or stop motion animation, which is like Nightmare Before Christmas with the puppets, the Tim Burton movie. A lot of concept drawings use tone paper, so they want to get a nocturne going. Like if it's at night, which a lot of scenes where they already have the night sky, they don't have to work as hard. They can whip those things out quickly in no time. And that's another good use of tone paper. So this angle is a little bit, I've got it downward trending. It's a little bit the opposite. So I'm going to bring it over just a little bit to be a little bit more accurate, right through there. That means my cone needs to be, in my drawing, a little bit smaller. Yours can be, you probably got yours right, and I messed mine up, so that's cool. So right in through there. So that's another reason to use darker toned paper if you're wondering, if you cared. There we go. So I'll catch that edge a little bit. It's there. That'll spit on my paper. Never hurt anybody. Never going to catch this edge coming over. This gets lighter. All of that gets a little bit lighter and softer. We're going to continue to work this area in through here. So I'm thinking about, here's what I'm thinking in my mind. Hopefully this helps. I'm thinking about light, the 6 properties of light, but then I start relating. I think about it like little circles. Like think of it this way. Here's the cap to the lens of my camera. And every time I'm in an area that I'm really concentrating on, I'm like, well, inside that circle, what's the value contrast relationship? Okay. After I got the light source and light going, what is the relationship to all those values? That's what I'm thinking too as well. Hopefully that helps. Since this is about artists and thinking and drawing. Okay. Here, so we're going to lighten this up a little bit. Continue on. It's just a little bit lighter right through here. There we go. Works pretty well. And this seems to be now wanting to be a little bit lighter in value. Coming across that edge here. Catching that edge. So if you're painting, how do you do strong edges? Well, you paint a stroke against a stroke, and that edge boundary helps you keeps a tight edge, but also straight edges, especially if you're using quicker drying media like acrylic or gouache or to a degree watercolor. I get questions about color. We won't get into color in this channel for a good long while, and then I've talked to other colleagues about coming in, maybe doing painting demos in the distant future, but this will be around for as long as I'm at this university. This drawing database will be around for a long time, so we'll keep adding to that. Also, if you're watching this video, and I'll talk a little bit about other things in drawing just to help keep you awake. Each playlist, the basics, the figure, perspective, simple form, formal perspective, there'll be relaxed perspective coming up later on, which is also known as sketching, by the way. All of that, take that in chronological order. They're relatively made chronologically, and they're meant to be watched in chronological order. So if you're wondering about how do I go through this, it's just chronological. I think that will take care of, hopefully, everything that you need to know about that. So that's what's meant by the playlist, in my opinion. That's what I use it for. So let me catch this edge now, the shadow, right here to make it a little bit stronger, just barely pushing down so we get that edge. There we go. I think that's working pretty well through there. So now let's catch over here. Let's soften now this cast shadow. So we're basically moving, we blocked everything in right now. I'm moving left, kind of left to right. Just because I'm right-handed, it's easier. And I keep my hand off the drawing as best I can. Okay, so I'm going to soften all this up a little bit. This needs to be lightened up a little because of the value range. And we're working a little different technique here. This light gets stays a little bit longer down in through here. It's really fun. I think it's fun to use this technique in reverse. People don't see it as often or think about it as often. It's pretty fun. It really makes you think about light even further. There we go. Okay, and through here. And we're coming through, and it'll get a little bit darker as we come over to the cast shadow range and region in through here. And I'm going to leave that for a moment, and this goes even a little bit lighter in value. Again, remember what's in your little circle of your little vision that you're looking into. Okay, here we go. So we'll catch that a little bit for now. So we'll go a little bit lighter, running down that diagonal. I made that more diagonal later on. So I'll take a little bit more artistic liberty with that edge, especially right here. I want that edge to be lighter, longer, so it's not necessarily now in the image, but I'm using it as a compositional device. Get through here, this is going to be a little bit lighter than what it is now, but darker overall to move my eye in. So look, I can be really loose, even quicker with it. Keep it pretty loose, keep it light. Try to stay awake out there. Slap yourself in the face. No, don't do that. Okay. So it fades out in terms of value a little bit. So that's about as light as I want to go. And it fades out. That's probably a decent amount. And of course I could refine. You could refine this photographically. You know, I'm not a big fan of photorealism. I think it's okay. I think it's a place to study. And I did that when I was a kid. I was a teenager. It's kind of how I came to drawing a little bit. Then you get informal study. And you study art history. And you study the history of drawing and painting. And, you know, there's relatively little art photorealism. Of course, there's an art historical movement of photorealism. So that's something you should look into and find those artists who did it. The name of the New York-based artist, for whatever reason, escapes my mind for a moment. So next time I do a cut here, I'll go back and look that name up really quickly, and I'll mention his name if you like photorealism. But it gets a little stiff and it gets a little brittle without learning to loosen up a little and let the natural materials show a little bit. So, all right, so that's working pretty well. This could be a little bit lighter, just to pop that little ray of light through just a little bit more. There we go. It's working pretty well, which means I probably want to lighten this up. So it's all about fine tuning as well. If you notice that, I'll hit a spot and I'll go over to other areas and hit that spot back and readjust as per needed. There we go. So it's working pretty well. All right, so I'm gonna come through here a little bit, continue to refine this a little bit. So I might leave this pretty loose, pretty sketchy, and this gets a little bit lighter in through here. All these are really soft edges, by the way. So a lot of soft transitions, nothing hard edge until we get to the edge of this pyramidal boxy form. Okay, through there. Take that over. Okay. I'm going to catch this edge right through there. All right, so it's looking pretty good here. Keep on coming. I'm gonna build up this diagonal, pushing it over a little bit. I think that's gonna help. So I'm gonna lighten this up a little bit so I can draw the viewer's eye, bring the viewer's eye in over here. So I'll lighten up just a little bit to bring them over. It's a little bit even lighter here to do that. So I get them moving over a little bit, moving and grooving, so to speak. I'm just glazing over this to get this to stay light. It's a little bit lighter. It's kind of a little halo right in where my pencil is right now. And through here, I think that's working plenty well. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to come in on, let's see, how about the cone? And start that cone, we'll get the pyramid in a little bit. I'm going to catch this edge of the cube a little bit here. There we go. Right through there. Okay, catch that. And then we'll start on this pyramid. I might catch its edge just a little bit right here for now, just to bring it back into a tighter points up at the top here, just barely pushing down. Okay, now I'm going to turn my paper to the side here so I can get to the cone a little bit easier. And we can start to lay in now this cone a little bit further. Okay, so light form shadow, the highest, brightest highlights right in through, kind of where I'm working now, lightening up a little bit, and then gradually moving to get a little bit darker on the edge of this, right into this back edge. It'll be just perceptually, barely, a little bit darker, so a little bit less pressure right in through there. A little bit hotter in through there. It's pretty close to some of the brighter planes over here. It's a little bit lighter. Notice I keep adjusting. That's per needed. Right in through there, right in through there. So a little bit brighter in through here up to the tip point. Catch that, bring that down. I'm going to come in and point that off just a touch. It's almost like its own little highlight. Right in through here. Catch that edge in through there. All right, I'm going to bring it back over. I'm going to catch now the core shadow, which is as we're turning across the cone, right? We're moving, turning across the cone. Let me get that in camera. Turning across the cone here, right? We've got this core shadow and then reflected light. Now the core shadow cone. Let me get that in camera. Turning across the cone here, right? We've got this core shadow and then reflected light. Now the core shadow is not absolute dark on the value scale, so we've got a little bit more light coming through there. It's a little bit softer, so it's probably in this range right over and through. Move that over just a little bit for right over in this this area. So we'll take that into consideration now. So what we can do is kind of gloss over this with the pencil here. And everything is going to get kind of gleaned over a little bit, if you will, in light, a little bit of lighter value. So we don't have to make that core shadow as dark. If you take a look at the shadow contrast relationship here, here, and then here. This is much lighter. So I'll continue to go down, or go, excuse me, go up a step, thinking in terms of shadow, continuing through here, because we know that once I get the core shadow value about where I want it, and I'm looking at the relationship between the lighter form values on this side against what the core shadow will be right in through here, and it's getting close, then everything on the other side in reflected light will actually be even lighter then. So it's a real reversal of thinking in terms of the technique to get what we want out of the same look, roughly, as working from a lighter piece of paper. So it's working pretty well. Now I'm going to come back down here a little bit. Okay. Right in through there, and now I'm going to start hitting my reflected light. Right up in through here, all over. Down here it gets just a little bit perceptually darker. Just a little. Catch that curve. Through here. Okay. So the reflected light on this cone on the left side, which I'm rendering in with my core shadow, is still much darker than the direct light that's hitting it. I'm going to soften it up. So now I'll come over and say, okay, I want to make my direct light a little stronger. If my core shadow was a little too light, I can take my kneaded eraser and dab at that and darken it down a little bit. Catch this edge. Continue to work on edge integrity, keeping your edges, boundary edges especially, nice and crisp. Coming over here. So this core shadow with the cast shadow in it is a complex situation. It's a little bit darker right in through here. It's got a little bit of a curved sort of area coming through, like so. And we're starting to get that to pull across. Go a little bit lighter. Okay. So this cone over here is, I'm going to reconstitute its curve a little bit. There we go. Catch that up there, and then I can lighten it up right in through here. So it's got to go a little lighter. Yeah, we're coming, it's working pretty good. A little lighter here on this side. And now a little lighter on the direct light side. Right in through here. Keep on softening. That transition, that core shadow, has got to be a light transition, or a soft transition, soft edge, form shadow, soft edge. Now, I'd like to go a little bit darker in it, so I'm going to take my kneaded eraser, and we're just going to say, okay, let's dab at this a little bit. Just press down a little, and take off a little bit so we can darken up a little bit, right in through here, and darken and soften a little bit, and then I can use the tools of my pencil to come back and redraw on top of it a little bit, so to soften back and light back up. So I'll take off a little bit more than I want just to get that close to that. It's pretty close. Then I can soften this up by just barely sort of glossing over it. Let me catch this up here. And then soften this over a little bit. So I'm just moving my pencil, laying it almost down flat, and just kind of softening this. It's a little bit darker. I want it to go a little bit darker, so I kept it darker. And softening those edges here. There we go. And this is going to get a little lighter in through here. There we go, working pretty well there. There's a little light mark. You can catch that right through there as it turns a little bit. It's just a little bit lighter into here. Just lots of light changes. So values changing constantly to get light to reflect off each other. So it can't be the same value for too long. You're going to be switching and moving quite a bit with your values. So you've got a lot more than just the quantifiable value scale that we've talked about before. It's a lot deeper than that. But 10 is enough to get a good general idea of where we're at. Otherwise, it gets so complex. It's like having too many colors on a palette. You don't want. I wouldn't think you want too many. If you had like 150 colors on a palette, you'd go nuts. Absolutely, you would. Okay, running through there. All right, so a little stronger light over here and soft, and let's catch that edge. And I think we're getting pretty good there with the cone. Catch that edge a little bit further. Feels pretty good. I might take my kneaded eraser right in this little core of the core, just perceptually, just a little bit darker. That felt pretty good there. Okay, so we're always in a state of refinement. Now I'm going to come back down out here on the edge of this cast shadow on the wall. It's so deep and dark, I kind of like it against a lot of this for now. I might change my mind, but I'm going to come over here and say, okay, we've got some little modular shifts going on in value here. Catch that edge a little bit, make sure I'm nice in camera there. And let's say, okay, I'm through here, and we'll come over and start to blend this in. Applying a little value, a little lighter value. And we'll come over. And then we've got, this gets a little bit lighter. It's almost kind of like these little bars, but there's very soft little transitions. A little lighter in through here. Then it gets a little bit darker as we get closer. Right in through here, it gets closer to that cylinder, just barely right in through here. And it catches, see how it's a little bit of a crisper edge right in through there, but it's still softer. That's important to get. And it kind of fades out a little bit. In through here, then it has another little area. So that's just a little bit of a stronger edge. So that means it's a little bit stronger value, not by a whole lot. That feels like to be enough, I think, right in through there. So we're doing a good drawing. And then I'm going to let just a little atmosphere come down in through here. This is perceptually very slight. And just because absolute dark is a drawing killer, can suck out so much light. So I'm going to bring just a little bit of atmosphere into that, just barely. And I might even take some out with my Kneaded Eraser and modulate it just a little bit. So we're going to take that over just a touch. Even back in through here just a little bit, just a little. Blazing over there, just perceptually a little. Now what I'll do is I'll take my Kneaded Eraser and I'll say maybe, okay, this could be a little stronger dark right in through here, and I can take my edge, okay, right in through here, take that, use that as an edge, bring out a little dark there. I think that works pretty well, and then catch, maybe keep it a little bit darker. So I'll take, and this is very probably slight on the camera, just a little bit in through here, a little bit darker. Just touch it. So just keep it a little bit more atmospheric. I think that's, for a sketch, I think that's fine. So let me catch this edge on the end of the cone over here, keep it crisp, and I think it'll help separate further and through. And I'm going to go a little bit brighter, just right in here on the cone, right there. And I think that'll get what I need from it, right in through there. There we go. Okay, that sits down pretty well. This shadow could come out a little more now. Just a little bit more. I think we're going pretty well. So moving on here, we'll capture, finish this out a little bit. This gets softened in just a little. Edges, light value edges and contrasts, key to reading many different kinds of images and processes. Two-dimensional art, three-dimensional as well. It's not just for drawing and painting, but photography, visual communication design, or graphic design, if you will. This might soften right into there. Okay. Right, so I think that's working pretty well. So I'll go back and double check here. Might bring this down. So I go back to this cube a lot because it's important. It was the first one I did. And it's probably this cone and the cube are the focal point regions. The planes are the lightest. That's my thinking. And so they're going to be important to kind of finalize. Just working on these shadow shapes. And within the planes, especially this little cast shadow over here. Just slightly at an edge and slightly soft. Or softer than I had it as well. Okay, so now I'm going to come over. We'll start with this pyramid. And a couple things you notice, the lighting situation is not as dominant as here, so we'll keep it that way. But we do want to modulate our lighting situation, meaning that we're skipping light across it so it's not flat and not the same value all over. There's shifts all over, these minor shifts. So we want to stay from anything that's truly just flat. So I'll start to bring up this value up on this plane. So remember, this is within the plane, so the lighting on this are soft form shadow shifts. And of course, there's a plane boundary, that's that hard boundary edge that you want. So you get control and degree of contrast there too as well. Okay. Right. So I'm going to come up a little bit, and so I'm relating this, all this little circle here to one another. And I might go just take that off just a little bit. Tweak there a little bit. There's a lot of tweaking that goes on. Right into there. I'll catch this. Notice I'll come back and I'll catch my edge a little bit. So I'll butt my edge to keep that edge strong. You can do that in painting too. You can mask off with tape later on if you so wish. So lightest in that corner, and then starts to grade it out a little bit. It looks pretty good, and it gets a little bit perceptually. I'm going to let it go a little darker as it gets down the shaft, so we pay less attention to it over here and more attention to the front over here.